September of 2018, and I'm going to document here the things that I've done to this Volkswagen since I purchased it from Musty back in June of this year. Let's start at the back of the car and we'll work our way forward. First thing, you may remember that there was a tow bar installed behind the bumper of the car by a person who owned it before Musty. That tow bar is gone, sitting over there. It seems kind of silly to have a tow bar in the back of a 50 horsepower vehicle. So that has been removed. Let's see, engine compartment. This lock was not keyed the same as the ignition and the two side door locks. It has now been rekeyed so that it works with the one ignition key. I have one key that unlocks every part of the car now. Under the hood, engine cover, I've replaced the plastic fuel filter with a metal fuel filter. This is going to be temporary. At some point I will move this to underneath the car so it's not dangerous, I guess you could say. I've made it about as safe as I can for the moment. I've also added a safety wire onto the carburetor, which you really can't see, but having a weight on the end of the fuel line here where it goes into the carburetor, the brass connection is only press fit into the carburetor, and sometimes with the weight of this moving around it pulls that out and causes a big gas leak and a fire. So it was suggested to me very early on to add a safety wire. You're really not going to be able to see it, I don't think, but there's a clamp there now, and there's a wire attached to it that goes to a screw on the other side of the carburetor, and that wire will prevent this hose from dislodging if that brass fitting ever comes out of the carburetor. I've also cleaned and re-oiled the original oil bath air filter. I'm going to be replacing the muffler in the car very soon, but haven't gotten to that yet. I also did a little rewiring there. That wiring was just taped together. It was a little shoddy. So, in regards to that tow bar, there were reverse lights on that tow bar that were connected to a switch under the dashboard. The reverse light has been moved here for now. I've only got one wired. I will wire the second one at some future point, and I've also changed out the switch, and I'll show you that in a minute. One of the big changes is that the car now features original Volkswagen seats. When I received the car, it had aftermarket seats, and someone had cobbled together some frames that were bolted to the floor pans. I was very lucky to find a pair of Volkswagen seats, 1968 seats, in really good condition, locally on Craigslist for a very good price. So I snarfed those up pretty quick. The only shortcoming with these seats was that part of the welting here had detached from the rest of the seat, and I just sewed that back on. I'm sorry if the lighting is not that good, but you can kind of see the loop stitch there. But they're not ripped, very good condition, comfortable, as it were, and they work really well. So I'm very happy with that. Inside, the car came to me with an old Radio Shack realistic tape deck in it. Musty determined that the tape deck was broken and causing a huge parasitic draw on the battery. So he had disconnected it, and now I've completely removed it. I'm going to be painting the car next year, including the interior. And until then, I just wanted to fill the hole in the dash. So I spent an afternoon in my workshop making this plate just as a temporary filler. I also cleaned and repainted the ashtray. I mean, it was really rusty inside, and it was a rainy day. I had nothing better to do, so I did that, and it'll get repainted with the rest of the dash so it matches in the future. I've also added two buttons down here, this one here and this one here. Remember how I said that there was a switch for the reverse light under the dash? Well, the original person had put it over here, which seems kind of a silly place to put it, so I've moved it over here. And you can see that when the reverse lights are on, the switch lights up white to remind me that the reverse lights are on. This switch over here is for the new washer fluid system that I've installed. The original pneumatic system was in pieces. It didn't work. and I wanted to have something that did work. So I've installed an electric pump and a reservoir and wired it up, and it works pretty well. It's the momentary switch, and it turns blue when you press it, and there's a little fluid there coming down. So those are my solutions to these problems. In regards to the reverse light, if you're asking yourself, well, why do you need a manual reverse light? This is a German market car. This is not a US market car, and in 1968, apparently reverse lights were not required in Germany. So the car does not have the necessary hardware from the factory for automatic reverse lights. So that is why I have manual reverse lights. I don't really drive this car very often, just, like a Sunday go get ice cream kind of thing right now. So this is perfectly fine as a solution. Let's go into the hood, and we'll see some changes, or repairs if you want to call it, under here. So, if you've watched the videos that were on Musty's channel, you'll remember that at some point in the history of this car, the brake fluid reservoir had leaked. It sprung a leak, and all of the brake fluid had poured down the side of the car here, and brake fluid eats paint, so this whole area here was all rusty. So what I've done is to clean up the rust, primed it, put rust converter on it, primed it, and painted it. The blue is simply a can of white Rust-Oleum and blue Rust-Oleum mixed together, and I kind of ballparked it. The interior here has never been painted. This is the original 50-year-old paint, and it's yellow with age. But this is fine. I'm not trying to turn this into a show car. Another thing I did is you'll see that these brake hoses are new German brake lines. When Musty first got the car, it had leaked out, and he temporarily put some hoses on there, and it turned out that the hoses that he had used are not compatible with brake fluid. So I simply bought, like as I said, some German brake line, put that on there, and that works great. He also replaced some soft lines down by the brake reservoir, but he did use the correct lines for that, and those are fine, so I don't have to do anything with those. There was also a bunch of wiring in here. It was a real mess. Someone had tried to install hazard lights. Again, a German market car, it doesn't come with hazard lights. At some point in the past, someone tried to wire them up, failed at it, so I pulled all that wiring out. All the wiring from the radio got pulled out. I went through and made several reconnected, new connections here and there with proper connectors with the adhesive in there so they don't move around or don't come detached, to fix weird and stupid wiring things. This defroster hose, I have a replacement for it. I haven't put it on yet. Another change to the car are the tires. Not only did I buy new tires all the way around for the car, but I also painted the rims. The rims were originally very rusty. The white had severely yellowed with age, so I took them all out and cleaned them up, primed them, painted them back to the way they were originally from the factory. The black inside and the white trim on the outside. As you can see, I'm sorry for the tight quarters. I have a small garage. See, but that's what they look like now. I think they look pretty cool. The tires are Nankang tires, a really well-known brand. Basically, they're decent budget tires. For the amount of driving I'm doing, I do not need high-end tires. If these last a couple, 10,000 miles, I'll be happy, because I'm not going to put more than 500 or 600 miles on the car in a year. And tires go bad after 6-7 years just sitting there. The rubber deteriorates, so it's not a big deal. Is there anything else I've done? Oh, the fluid reservoir. The washer fluid reservoir is attached to the spare tire rim. It's a little difficult to pull out here. Let me see if I can show you from the back. This is what it looks like. It can be removed quite easily with those, plastic, I don't know what you want to call these, nuts, plastic nuts, retainers, whatever. And then it's electrically wired up there, up to the fuse box. I'm sorry if my camera work isn't that good. I'm not a professional photographer. But I think that's about everything I've done to the car so far this year. Seatbelts. When I got the car, it originally had some cheap, poorly installed aftermarket seatbelts, the auto-retracting kind. This car originally came with lap belts. It didn't have auto-retractors, and there's really no easy way to install them in this car, so I've installed manual belts. 3-point attached down here, down there, and here, and they're the quick release kind. I thought they'd be cool. So I've got those in the front, and I've got lap belts in the back. I mean, they're not particularly expensive. They're very easy to install. Volkswagen pre-drilled holes for the attachment points, so that was easy to do. Another thing I did was I replaced the shifter bushing that's down here in the tunnel. There's a plastic bushing that tends to fail, and then the shifter becomes very wobbly, very ambiguous shifting. So I replaced that, lubricated the shifting mechanism really well, replaced the rubber boot down here. There was an empty short shifter kit installed on this. I've removed that because I just didn't like it. And I painted this, put a proper German, Volkswagen knob on there. So it's, basically back to stock condition. The other thing that I did that I forgot to mention the first time around, I simply replaced this rubber gasket here on the engine compartment. The other one was literally falling to pieces. It's a very simple job to do, so if you need to do it, don't hesitate to. Anything that helps seal the engine compartment is a good thing. One last change I forgot to record. New running boards. I bought these from Wolfsburg West. Very nice. Installed very easily. Definitely worth the money.